All right, let's look at arc length for calculus. Now, arc length is just based on the Pythagorean theorem. Pythagorean theorem, given 2 points, we find the distance between the x's, we find the distance between the y's, and that length in between, the square of that equals the sum of the squares of the x length and the y length. Solving for the diagonal length there, we get L is the square root of the x distance squared plus the y distance squared. It turns out we can factor that dx out, and it looks like this when we factor it out. Now, imagine then that we are zoomed in on a function, and this dx, this line segment here, the dx and the y, they're just tiny, 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 and we're just going to have a whole bunch of them connected together that we sum up as that dx goes to 0, and that leads to an integral. As x goes from some starting value a to some ending value b, we integrate the square root of 1 plus the square of the derivative of the function with respect to x. Now let's test that on just a simple linear function. Down here, I have the function f of x or y equals 2x minus 1. Its derivative, f prime of x, or dy dx, is equal to just 2. So that arc length there should be the integral as x goes from 0 to 3 of the square root of 1 plus the square of its derivative, which is just 2. 2 squared is 4, plus 1 is 5. So then this should be the integral from 0 to 3 of the square root of 5. Now, square root of 5 is just a constant, so our antiderivative is just the square root of 5 times x, and I'm integrating that from 0 to 3. 3 minus 0 is 3. That's a constant, so we just have the square root of 5 times 3, or 3 times the square root of 5, whichever you prefer. Now, testing that with the Pythagorean theorem says you can make a right triangle here. Well, I say you can make a right triangle. Pythagorean theorem says based on that triangle, we can say we have this horizontal distance of 3 and this vertical distance of 6. So that green length there ought to be the square root of 3 squared plus 6 squared. So that's what, 9 and 36, square root of 45. 45 is 9 times 5. Square root of 9 is 3. 5 is stuck inside. We get the same answer. And we can apply this to any curve. It doesn't have to be a straight line.